Hello and welcome to Devlog number 3, where today we're gonna be using some AI art for my game. We're gonna be using Midjourney and editing the assets, and I want this to be a realistic use case scenario. Uh, I'm not gonna make all my art AI generated because it probably look not the best that way. I'm only gonna use some assets, and I feel like that's the most convenient way and a realistic way to actually use AI art at the stage that it's in right now. So for this episode, I'm just gonna be making the AI tile set, an AI tile set with it, maybe some objects perhaps, and then I'm going to make one enemy, the design for one enemy, the placeholder animation, and then I'm going to add logic to that enemy for this episode. Okay, so after playing around a little bit with Midjourney, I managed to create this image right here, and I'm probably gonna play around with it a little bit in Photoshop and try to make it so that I can use it with a sprite shape in Unity and make sure that it tells properly. So I'll be working on that right now. Okay, so I made this tiling spread, and I'm right here in the sprite editor, and what these green lines pretty much do is it tells Unity that, oh, whenever you get to this point in the sprite, if you extend it, then you need to start repeating the middle part again. And I fixed it up in Photoshop, so the middle part, if you put it next to each other, it will look like it's tiling. Uh, so I did that, and then I made it slightly smaller. I made sure that it was full rect. It needs to be full rect for this to work, otherwise it will not work. And then right here, when actually I have the sprite right here in the scene. I just make sure that the draw mode is set to tiled, and then I can just increase and decrease the size however I want. It's not perfect. It's not gonna tile like if you put it a little bit more towards the middle of the tile, it will look pretty awkward. But once you get to a point like that's like right here, it actually looks pretty nice. It tiles. It's not perfect. It's not a like a full-on tile set, but it blends in and it looks consistent if you put it at just the right spot. So I think for the purpose of this prototype, it should work fine. So I'm going to go ahead and make a quick level, and I'll see you then. Okay, so I made a quick level. It's pretty simple, just three platforms, one to the left, right, and the bottom. And then I added this background that I made using Midjourney, which I'm gonna show you how I did it right now. So the way I made this background, I pretty much generated some images and I made sure to use the same seed, so it was close to the same art style, and I made sure to also use a very similar prompt that I used to make the grass asset I made earlier. This one I made a while back. I made it like a couple of months ago, but I just decided to put it in the background for a prototype. But I've been using the same seed, so I use the same seed for all the images that I was generating. So I made a fence background image. Then I try to make some clouds. I use one of these ones. I don't remember which one I used. I put probably this one right here. Then I made something else like for space. And then I stitched all the images together with Dolly 2 outpainting. So pretty much I just put the images right next to each other, and I use Dolly outpainting to generate the in-betweens and make the images slightly longer than they are. Let me show you the final result. Okay, so this is the image I generated. Remember, I made fence with grass, and then I made some clouds, and I used Dolly to stitch it together. So pretty much I have this really long image that goes all the way to space, to AI generated space. So you can see the grass here, some clouds, some more clouds. Then right here, so you can see like planets. I guess they're supposed to be planets. I don't know. I didn't make this. It was AI generated. And then you can see right here some stars, then some more clouds in space apparently, and then some stars right here, which looks more like space. And this is not gonna be a final art. This is gonna be a placeholder because obviously I want everything to be in a separate layer to have some sort of what do you call it? Some sort of parallax effect. So to make it where the things that are farther away move slower than the ones that are in the front. Meaning, for example, if you're moving up, this fence would get off the screen really fast, while these trees and these clouds on the background will take longer to get off the screen. But I'm not gonna do that until I finish the prototype. So for now, it's gonna be a still image. There's not gonna be no parallax effect, which might look not the best, but it's just a prototype. I don't care too much about how it looks. And then I just added it to the background. Uh, I feel like how it was normally, it would look it would be hard to distinguish what's a game object and what's the background. So what I did to resolve this, I just decreased the opacity so the actual platforms where you can stand them, uh, they stand out and you know what's what. This is how it looks in the game. And I changed the background for the camera. The default one is a blue color. I just made it the same color that is on the scene, so that way it's more consistent between the scene view and the game view. So yeah, now that it's more transparent, you can tell the difference between the background and the actual platforms. Another quick change I wanted to make, I feel like now that I have the background and the objects in place, I feel like the dog looks way too small. I know I'm gonna have two players, but I feel like it still looks too small. I want it to be more like this type of size. So I'm going to change the size of all the sprites and make them more like this size, instead of being small like this. So I'm going to do it real quick. Okay, so I adjusted the dog size, but I had this problem where the sprite became transparent for some reason. And I did a little bit of research and I found that that is because the sprite is too close to the camera, so just moving it slightly back, like -1, fixes the issue. I don't know why, but it just works. So let me show you how it looks now. Okay, I also increased the size and the compression for the background so it looks a little bit sharper quality, but at the same time I made it a little bit small, so it looks a little bit blurry instead of looking super sharp because it's the background. So it doesn't need to look like as sharp as the main platforms. Okay, so here's the dog. I feel like it looks much better when the dog is this size. His doesn't look like he's super tiny. Okay, now that we got the AI background elements, I'm going to start working on the enemies. Okay, so I was deciding on what enemies I should make first, and I realized that I've sort of ran out of ideas, and I asked ChatGPT to give me some ideas, and it gave me a mix of good and bad ideas. I'd say to make some space bots, some alien invaders, some group of animals. This ones are alright. I like the bird idea. I asked for some more, and it gives me like different types of ideas. Snake squirrels. Yeah, I feel like those squirrels would be a good enemy to add. Uh, he's talking about more birds. The buzzing bee. I feel like that would make sense at the beginning levels to have a bee that slowly moves towards the dog. Some more birds, some cloud enemies. I mean, some of these ideas I've already had, but I was looking for ideas for enemies that's closer to the beginning of the game, and are simple. They're not so like space robots. I feel like that will be more to for when the player is getting close to the moon. So I've used a mix of these ideas and ideas I've had on my own, and I think I'm gonna make up first some pigeon enemies that are they're just gonna fly in place and fly up and down. I feel like that's good for a beginner enemy, and then I'm gonna make some bees that are gonna slowly move towards the player. So I'm just gonna make placeholder animations for them. They're gonna be like a frame or two. So I'll proceed to do that and show you the time lapse. Okay, so I added some logic for the pigeon enemy. I made it so in the Unity animator so it will move up and down, and I also made it through code so it will move from side to side. It doesn't really do anything right now. I still need to add the balloons so the dog can have some hitboxes. And I added this nice gizmos on the pigeon so you can see how far it's gonna move. Look, let me show you on the actual scene when it's playing. As you can see, the pigeon will move from left to right and it won't go outside of the circle. Okay, so I found something that might give us a little bit of inconsistencies on the AI generated art. Even though I was using the same seed and using the same AI to make the art, I found that I was using a different version because it defaults to the newer version. And when I was making the background art, like this one, it was on the 5 of the 4. So I was using the mid-journey version 5.1, but the current one is version 5.2. So even though I'm using the same seed, it might generate slightly different results. It might not look as consistent as I would want to. So in the settings, I decreased the version to 5.1, or I could simply just add this prefix when I run by in the prompt. And now I'm using the same seed and the same model, so we should get more consistent results. And I generated these balloons, and I'm probably gonna use this one right here on the top right to add to updog, so he can have balloons now. Okay, yeah, so after making some balloons on mid-journey and cutting them out and splitting them on the sprite editor, I just made a pivot that animates whenever the dog moves. You can see that in action. I'm going to scene view. Yeah, you can see right here, it moves slightly up and down whenever the dog is animating. And then I made it so whenever the dog turns around, the balloons turn around too. And I think it looks pretty nice. I still need to add some like sort of strings that are attached to dogs, but it looks good enough right now. It looks pretty decent for AI art for a prototype. This looks awful, but I'm gonna make a better animation once the prototype is done. This is just temporary. Obviously, this animation's not done. It looks pretty ugly. Uh, so right now I'm gonna add some colliders for the balloon, so when he touches the pigeon, it will pop. And I also want to make it so whenever he moves to the left, like in the original Balloon Fighter, he will appear on the right side. So I'm gonna work on that and I'll show you. Okay, so I added the colliders to the balloon, so whenever you collide with an enemy, your balloon will get popped and you will be sent flying away. And once you lose all 3 of them, it's a game over, you can't move. I just need to add a restart screen or a game over screen that restarts the scene. And I made it so instead of you having to manually press the bite button, instead you using to collide the dog with the enemies and you automatically bite them. Okay, so that's done. I just need to make it so he can bounce off of walls and that he can teleport to the sides. And probably gonna use that to make some puzzles. We have to teleport to the other side to go further in the level. Okay, Okay, so I added the functionality for it to bump against walls, and I added a little sound effect. Now whenever you bump against the wall, you're gonna hear that little sound effect and you're gonna bounce off. Which will make it a little harder to maneuver. You can just like go super fast and not worry about what you're gonna bump against, because if there's an enemy right here and you like go really fast, you could accidentally bump into it. And I added this temporary walls just to test it out. I think it worked pretty good. Okay, so this episode has been too long already, so I'm gonna finish it here. In the next episode, I'm going to make it so whenever you go to one end of the wall, you appear in the other end. And to do that, I'm probably gonna have to make a clone of it that appears on the other side. And yeah, that'll be for the next episode. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, subscribe.